All right, thanks, Divya, for joining me to walk me through your capstone project that you used Adobe XD for. Can you talk a little bit about what the project was and why you decided to use XD as the platform for it?
Yeah, so my project basically was an app mockup that displayed how the process of acculturation works for a lot of people. And what acculturation is the process of getting acquainted with or learning how to adapt to a new culture. And this happens when like you move to a different city or a different country or a different continent. So it's a very like diverse process, I would say. Like everyone goes through it differently, but specifically in the United States, I feel like a lot of our communities are not bridged together correctly or like even in any way because they don't know what someone else's experience is like. And there's so many different experiences here from like every part of the country or every part of the world. So I had a mock-up where you could kind of go through it like a game. And you would be going through some other culture, which didn't really match up to any culture here.
Right.
But it was just a hypothetical culture where you would like have to give a presentation at a college class. And it was your first day in that college, first day in the class, and you were getting acquainted with all the people around you and just doing everyday life things like saying your name or like eating lunch and things like that. And you would kind of go through a couple different choices and see how that would play out for you.
So do you mind showing us what the project looked like and maybe walk us through how you actually pulled it off and what techniques you used in XD?
Yeah, sure. All right, so this is an overview of what all the different screens that I made look like. And there's a lot of them because it branches off like by choice. So this is how I organized it in XD, where like I have all the common screens at the top, and then it splits off based on like the different options that you choose.
Mhm.
Um, and so we'll start from the beginning. Should I do a mock or like a walkthrough of
Sure,
the
yeah, if you want to
actual?
walk us through and then you can show us how you wired it up.
Okay, cool. So this is the home screen of my page. Are you able to see this?
Yep, looks good.
Cool. All right, so you can click begin over here. Um, that's just through one of their button functionalities. And then I use transitions to make everything appear on the page. So this is kind of what the opening screen or like the first screen of the app looks like. So it gives you a brief overview of your situation. Um, and then you're able to just click through a couple different more information slides. So these are just some like simple animations to get things to appear, which made it a little bit more interesting than just a picture.
Yeah.
Um, and again, these are the same types of animations. So you
Hmm.
can see over here how I did that was just adding like manually every single different piece
Yeah.
of what I wanted on there.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you use a time transition, so it automatically just jumps to the next screen on its own without any
yeah,
interaction, right? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And then when you click the let's meet the group button, you're able to go to the next set
Mhm.
of animated things. So we'll keep continuing through this. So this is the first kind of problem that arises in your situation where someone's trying to figure out how to say your name and they can't quite figure it out.
Mhm.
Um, and they finally decide on how to say, but they say your name wrong. Um, Figure out if it's worth it to correct them or if you want to kind of just let it go because it's only a 1 week long project.
Right.
So here's the first branch off. So you can click like either don't correct or correct it. So if we go with don't correct, you'll go to one of these slides
Hmm.
and that is where it splits off over here.
Nice.
So you can either go into don't correct or correct,
Great.
and then they branch off based on that. And here, it's not a direct branch off because these don't have anything super related to it after,
Hmm.
but after you click through these, this is where you see a little bit more about that scenario, and then it branches off into the separate story. All right, so then if you click next, I added a part where there was a lot of text on the current thing that I was trying to show. I added a couple of slide downs over here.
Nice. Looks good.
Um, And I think how I did that was, it's a little bit tricky and I'm not sure if there's an updated version. But you add this same component that you want over here and you like make it move a little bit.
Yep.
And you can do like a transition for this actual component.
Right.
Is that, yeah. I think that's how you do it still.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And when you keep clicking through, you'll see a little bit more of some of the scenarios that you'll face, like speaking in front of a crowd. And so you can choose again if you want to present anyways, even if you're not sure the class will understand you. And then you get to your next scenario. So this is where it branches out. I think we're over here at this point. So this is the first like big transition that I did. So you see that now it's in the screen that looks like Twitter, which I had a lot of fun building out because I took a screenshot and tried to make it look the same. So these are all like tiny components. And then over here, you can comment to make a decision. So this is a different like layout, which I thought would be interesting.
Great.
So when you click over here, you can see the two different options for your choice here being typed out as tweets. And the reason that I did this was when I was talking with Joseph, who was my DCC capstone, I guess, TA or grad assistant professor.
Yeah.
He thought that it would be a lot more interactive and put someone in the story's like actual shoes or the character's shoes, because you would feel like you're individually pressing each button here and seeing the words being typed out. And as you can see, this took a lot of slides because I did it in like a brute force kind of way.
Yeah.
Where, each
and
letter is highlighted.
Yeah, and really like what you're showing us here, and then there's sort of an auto animate feature based on time. So once it just jumps automatically to the next screen and then types out all that. And really the way that you've laid it out here is still the only way for Adobe XD to give a typing experience where you really do have to do a brute force method. So far, it's one of the things that's baffled me about XD, that typing is not just fluid and easy in XD. It's bizarre.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to do that, it'll be a long process, but it looks cool.
It does look amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so from here, you can just click one of these buttons to go to the next slide, and then it goes back to the regular format. So you kind of keep going through the same type of format here. And then there's one more interactive thing that I want to get to. So I'm going to click through a bunch of these.
Yeah, sounds good.
So yeah, I just tried to add some animation to the pages because it looked a little bit better, but
definitely.
Yeah. And so here we see the slide down thing again. And I think next up, or a couple more slides. All right, so after this slide is where I had kind of a group chat type of layout. And this is because you're talking to some of your group mates in a group chat about some music artist or something, and you're debating over joining in. So over here, you see the group messages being populated and you're typing over here, thinking about what to say. So you see that they have a bunch of messages and you're not sure if you even want to respond, but now you see that this option is actually grayed out, because if you don't respond quick enough and you hesitate for too long, you can't even try to respond, because in group chats it keeps going super quick.
Yes,
so
nice.
If you miss that moment, you can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, what a great idea.
So now you only have to wait until the topic changes back, and that sometimes never happens.
Right.
So you decide not to tell them anything about yourself because that moment has passed, and it just keeps adding to that feeling of you not fitting in. So then you finally get to the ending almost. You're wondering about your presentation, and all the text in here is affected by all the different choices that you made earlier, which is why you had to branch off into all the different pages. Um, I'm not sure if they have any like conditional type text yet,
Right.
but if they do, that would be cool. A
Yeah.
lot easier.
Great. And nice. And then we're at the end.
Yep,
Great.
that is
Very
it.
cool. Nice. So had you worked in Adobe XD before you started this project?
I had not. I think this was the first time I really tried to do something with it.
And what was the process of learning that for you? What did you find kind of challenging about it?
Yeah, I think it was mainly tricky to understand like how to create bigger pieces of um, these like little pages and stuff, because it kind of made more sense when you were making like a website and you just had a button to click and then it was like, oh, it'll take you to this next big page.
Right.
But here I was trying to add a lot more like transitions and a lot more animations on each like click.
Yep.
And I had to understand that the only way to really make it look like an animation was repeating the same thing over and over and changing what I wanted to change,
Yep.
like a very primitive form of like making a GIF or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and since we worked on that when I was taking DCC, it wasn't that hard for me to understand how exactly to do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of translated it over here. And I think by now people would probably know that there's like a design and a prototype page. So just learning what all the different prototype options do was a little tricky.
Yep.
And like you kind of just have to watch a tutorial or something to understand what these do. And there's a lot of options on YouTube and just like Medium articles of people explaining. So that really helped me.
Great.
But yeah.
Cool. And what were people's reactions when you had them actually use the app that you made?
Yeah, it was cool because I could plug in my phone directly into my laptop and have it look like a real app. And people were like, "Oh my God, you created an app!" And I was like, "No,
Yeah.
but it looks like an app."
Yeah.
And it was nice to have people be able to do something that was interactive at the career, or not career fair, the capstone fair.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things are just like you look at it or you interact with it on a computer like a game or something. And it was nice to have something mobile. And I think people were excited about going through kind of like a story-based thing. Obviously, this is a very like early kind of iteration of what this would actually look like as an app. But it was a good proof of concept, I think, and let people still experience this whole story without creating anything too elaborate.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great point. Many of the capstone projects and the kind of work we'll do in 105 are, I think proof of concept is a great way to phrase it, because if you had people ultimately after building this say, I don't get this thing, you can pretty easily go back in and change a few screens to adapt to the feedback that you get. While if you're coding this thing out, it's a totally different process to have to redo part of your app. So this allows you to iterate in ways that other platforms don't, I think. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. This is such a great project. Really, it's strong conceptually, and I think your execution of it is just so rich. I remember experiencing this at the Capstone Fair, just being absolutely blown away by the scale of it, honestly. Like, I think the amount of work that went into this as a parent, and definitely kind of above and beyond. So kudos to you. It's really a great project. Thanks for sharing it with our students too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
One of the great things about Adobe XD is that you're able to recreate some of the gestures and actions that give a true sense of the usability of an app or an interface that you're going to create. So what we're going to do today is jump in and look at some of the more advanced features in Adobe XD for recreating some of the things that you might eventually code in your app or your interface. So let's pick up where we left off with the previous video with the LDR app. One of the things I noticed about the app as we began working on it was that we were using the San Francisco typeface from Apple. And when using Adobe and creating prototypes on your phone, when I took it over to my phone to test it out, it kept kicking back an error that the SF font was not, or was missing on my device, which is interesting because I have an iPhone. But nonetheless, you want to avoid that as much as possible. So I've learned my lesson a second time. I did this last year as well, where I tried to use a custom font. It's always better just to stick with those Adobe fonts. So what I did was went in and changed all of these to tablet Gothic. So if you can just jump in and change your typefaces at this point to tablet Gothic, I activated that through fonts.adobe.com. So you can go in there and activate tablet Gothic. All right, next I notice also there's nothing to do after the phone number pops in. What do people do? So we need to create a little button, a little confirmation. I'm done. That is the correct phone number. I don't have to hit the backspace. I don't have to clear anything. That's my number. I'm going to show you one way to pull icons in. You can do that through your UI kits. Another thing you can do is go over to plugins, and you can activate plugins here, and we can actually search for a bunch of different types of plugins that XD has that are made by outside vendors. So we can look for icons, for example, and see what sorts of things come up. We can choose things like icon drop, or what I had here, icons for design, and then it says the plugin is installed. Okay, so I've activated a couple of different plugins here, one of which is Icons for Design. I'm gonna go there and type in the word arrow. I'm gonna look for an arrow that I can use to confirm that once the number is entered, I can go ahead and move on to the next screen. So I'll choose this Alt arrow, or arrow Alt circle right. I'm gonna change the fill to white and hold Shift and make it a bit larger, and drag it over here to be that confirmation. I am done. I've entered the phone number. This is what I want to be in there. I don't need to hit backspace. We're ready to go on to the next screen. Now I can copy and paste this. Again, if I go to layers and look at where this is at the very top there, so I can copy it and actually bring it over here as well and paste it into this artboard and kind of drag it off screen, similar to the phone number. And when I hit play, what is your phone number? That pops in as well and becomes a phone number. Okay, we are going to move on to our next screen. So what I'm going to do is click on the name of the artboard, hold Option and drag it out. And this is now going to take us to our home screen for LDR, the main interface that people will use. And first of all, I'm just going to drag everything off. We're going to start kind of with a fresh design. For here, we are going to go ahead and drag Welcome to LDR off here. Now, one of the things that I wanted to demonstrate here, let me back up here. So right now, if I click on the Welcome to LDR, when you click on the layers palette here, you can see that it is a part of artboard that is called phone number 1. And if I drag it around, still part of phone number 1. Now, if I click on it and drag it off of the artboard, watch what happens. It now is a part of what's called the pasteboard. So it is no longer in any way affiliated with this artboard. So when I do auto animate from this button from the phone number artboard over to this new home screen, it's not going to animate. It's just going to fade out. And the reason is because it's no longer affiliated with that. One of the techniques to avoid that is before you begin moving things around on the artboards, jump over to prototype. We're going to click on the arrow. We're going to drag it to the artboard, and we're going to make the action type an auto animate. And as soon as I do that, let me go back to design. If I grab this and just drag it, and I'm just going to hold shift way up, it is now still apart. It has not changed from that. So that's the steps that you need to do. If you need things to be far off of the artboard in order to achieve your animations, you have to at least get the auto animate feature going in prototype before you begin moving things around. So I'm going to go ahead and just shift click on all of these elements. Let's see. Oh, and I forgot the bar here, and I'm just going to drag these down as well. And I'm going to drag these pretty far down. And I want to go ahead and pull in some different features. I'm going to go back to my main logo here. I'm going to click in and click these things and copy them. Go over to this artboard and paste them in. And I'm going to go ahead and size these down. And use this as my main logo up here as well. And right now I'm just doing it based on eyeballing it, and I'll need to kind of go in and make sure that things are sized correctly, that we've got the right heights for all of these. Okay. And once I've got these essentially looking the way I hope they do, and actually here I can see how much space on each side. So right now it's about 91 pixels over here and a little over 90 pixels here. So it's basically centered. This D looks like it could move over just a bit. And once I've got those going, I can hold shift and select all three, and then I can go command or control G, which turns them into a group, and I can call this LDR logo in my layers. Okay, so that is set to go. Now, for a lot of the work you're going to do, you want to be able to move quickly, and you want to borrow as much as possible from pre-existing models. So I'm going to head over and look at some UI kits. And so I'm going to go File, Get UI Kits. And again, you can use that sort of hamburger 3-line menu option in Windows to access this. So you can get to UI kits. And I'm going to click on More UI kits. And what I'm going to use here for the rest of this system is one called Social Meetup, and you can download this and install it. And open that up. And I'll zoom in to show you some of the work that they've done here. They have kind of this live chat feature. You can pull that over. But I really just like the curved cards that they've got set up here. They've got typographic things, they've got verification codes, they've got a lot of things you can go ahead and just borrow and adapt for your own app and create layouts that are pre-built in a sense and allow you to go in, change the coloring, change the specifics, and so on. So what I'm going to do is grab, let me see if I can find the one that I was hoping to use. cards too. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on the names right here. I'm going to pull some of these over. Like these 2 cards, for example, I'll copy them. And then over in where I'm working with iOS, I will go ahead and paste those near these things. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the elements here within cards 2 and copy those and go back to my main screen right here, and I'm going to paste that in. Okay, so the cards have gone above the LDR logo, and that's okay. Excuse me. Right now, we don't see the LDR logo, and I'm going to size this up actually too to kind of fit the width of my project. Okay, and the reason I don't see the LDR logo is because they're both white right here. What I'm going to do is double click and just kind of keep clicking until I get to the white curved rectangle here. I'm going to change the fill color. I'm going to click on fill, choose the eyedropper, and go back here. I don't need any of these elements here. Actually, I'm going to just kind of click on them and delete them. I'm going to use my own. But I also do not need a border around that, but I would like a shadow, a bit of a shadow as well. So I might kind of bump this out a bit to give it a bit of texture there. All right, what I want to do here on this screen, so you're in a long distance relationship, you want to initially highlight that connection. I've entered my phone number, my partner has entered their phone number, and we pop up on that first screen of LDR. So what I'm going to do here is go to the circle shape tool and drag out, holding shift, a circle about that big. I don't know if I need a border around it yet. We'll see. I'll kind of play around with it. But now I'm going to hold Alt or Option and drag and hold Shift and get that about right there. Okay, and I'm going to click on this first one, and this is going to pretend to be a picture of the user here. And we can do that, again, through a plugin called UI Faces. So you'll go back to plugins and hit Add and look for UI Faces. And I'm going to look for photos. And you can pick whomever you want for this. You can kind of set up your imaginary relationship here. Maybe I'll start with him and I'll click apply. And it fills in that circle there. And maybe I would like a border, maybe a white border, a bit thicker, 5, 4, 5. Okay, and then we'll pick who he's going to be in a relationship with. So let's go and find his partner. And that's entirely up to you. Who do you think he should be with or she should be with, depending on who you set up. So let's choose him, and we'll hit apply. And you'll notice, let me again change the border here around his photo. His picture he looks a little further away. That's pretty normal. But if you did want to change it, you could double click on it. I can resize his picture just to maybe match a little bit more so the faces are a little more even. We can go back to my icons for design. Let's see if they have a heart. They do. They have this one as well. I tapped on that and I cut it, and let me go ahead and paste it into LDR right here on the home screen. Change its fill to white. Drag, the ones that don't have a fill are such a pain to drag around because you actually just have to click right on the line itself, not the fill. Okay, so this is gonna be where we start here. Let me go ahead and change the color of this purple one. So I click until I see the purple option, and now I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to pick this light blue that's in the middle to stick with my color palette. All right, and you'll notice down here there are some pictures that don't even match the titles of this. Meditation has a little girl as a ballerina. I can click into this until I'm around that picture. And there's another plugin called Free Stock, and you can just look for stock photos, for example. But let's look for meditation photos. All right. Oops. Let me make sure that I am clicked into that picture. And let's see if it applies. Yes. Okay, so I clicked all the way into it until it kind of showed up with those borders that would allow me to do some transformations on the photo itself. So I can look for yoga here, for example. Maybe another one like that. I mean, just to show you what is possible here for using stock photos, filling things in that are not things that you have to go and mess around in Photoshop. You can just pull these straight into your design. Okay, what I want to do here, if I double click on this, you notice that actually there's quite a bit of content. And what you can do for this particular screen, which I am going to call first screen, I can do vertical scrolling, and what I can do is as I start to drag this down and change the height, you'll notice that this dashed line is where the phone ends, and here I've got my content that is scrolling. And actually I want to get enough down here, but I do not want that as to be a part of it. I want enough for the bottom of the phone to exist. So maybe the height of this ends up being about 1530, you can see right here, and you can even just type that directly in. But the viewport height is 812 pixels. So there's a difference there, which then allows it to scroll. I'm going to go ahead and put a bottom menu button around this, and I am going to pull that over from another UI kit. So let's go and get some UI kits, and I think we'll look at material design for this. And when you go to the material design website, right here, there's an option that says design kits for Adobe XD. And then we will download that, unzip it, head into there, and we're on a light theme right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So this is the light theme for material design, and you can read all about material design. There's an entire philosophy around it. And what I'm going to use is this right here. I'm going to click on this and copy it. I'm going to paste it over into a lot of the assets that I'm working with, just so I have those things handy. And I can return to them as needed. And what I'm going to use is this center cut option right here. Okay, so as you look at this, and when I click on this, there's a little link here, which means this file exists in another document. It's not native to my LDR Prototype 1 cloud document. It's actually from a different document. And so it's not saving it twice, it's saving it once on that different document, and that document is sharing it with mine. And this is one way that you can share documents. So for example, if you're all working together on your project and you have this material design option, like I can save this here as light theme, XD and material design. I can save it to the cloud. And once it's saved, I can share it with my team. And so we can all collaborate on this. We can even co-edit it, for example. And also, once that's saved within your main project under components, you can actually add assets from the cloud. So I can pull in things from that particular project. Similarly, what you can do is if I've copied over a particular component from an outside source or from a different kind of document, you can make them local as well. You can unlink them. And one thing you can do, for example, is just go ahead and click unlink component, and this now creates kind of its own instance of it on that document. If I wanted to go into components and add that in as a bottom menu bar, for example, now that exists there, and I can go back to my first screen here, and I'm looking for that dashed line. So I'm going to go to my components. I'm going to pull out the bottom menu bar here and kind of drop it somewhere on my screen there, and then let it kind of live right there. The colors of this are actually all wrong. So let me go back to that first instance. And again, this is a copy of that master instance, so I can go back to my source file for that and match my colors a little more precisely. So I can kind of double click in here, and I can change the fill to that blue color that works with my design. I can do a fill for this circle as well. And instead of a solid color, I could do a radial gradient if I wanted to. That draws off some of the colors I'm using in my design as well. And I can change the plus sign as well. I can let that be white. Right now the plus sign has that gradient on it as well. Let me see if I can change that. Radio, oh, it's still got the radio gradient. Solid color, white. Okay, so once I edit that, every instance of it should match that. Okay, so there is that. And if I click on this, I actually want to leave this set to fixed. So when it scrolls, that menu button or menu bar doesn't go anywhere. Same thing with the logo. I don't want the logo to go anywhere, so I will fix that. But let's take a look at how things are going with this thus far. So I've clicked my phone number, that goes away, and now I can kind of scroll through my content. Okay. I wanted to show you a couple of different animation options that you can do for these projects. So let's go ahead and imagine that when we click on the plus button, we will bring up a menu bar that's going to give us some options for things that we can do. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on first screen, and I'm going to duplicate it by holding Option or Alt. And we're going to call this the plus sign menu. And within this, I no longer need to be scrolling. And the height, again, can just go back to normal. So my height can be whatever these are. 812, there it is. So once I click on this, I can go ahead and make sure, sorry, that the overall height here is 812. Okay, and that puts that back there. Okay, one of the things that will happen when somebody presses the plus sign is it's going to give you some ways of adding content here. So I'm going to choose my rectangle tool, and I'm going to drag out a rectangle that is the width of this. And I'm going to drag it up to the top here. Now you'll notice these circles that are in the corner. If you drag them, you can make rounded rectangles. If I hold Option or Alt, I can choose one to be curved, for example, if I like that look, or I can similarly do two, and I can see if they match up, because this one is at 70, and here I can change this to just make sure that they match 70. Oh, and it's actually doing all corners. Let me go back there. So this one needs to be 70 as well. There we go. And it gives you kind of those options as well. All corners or just a few corners. And I can set these to 0. So this will come up here. Let me go to Files, make sure it's behind the menu bar and that it's wide enough. And I'm going to apply a black background blur to this to just cover up what's underneath it and give a sense of, you know, this is taking over the screen at this particular moment. All right, and I need that to animate in when somebody clicks on the button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this rectangle, and over here I'm going to paste it into this design and make sure in my layers that it's actually in the same place and called the same thing. So this is rectangle 572. I should have renamed it, but there it's named the same thing. They are both beneath those things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down and change its opacity to 0. And when I go to prototype for this button, when somebody clicks plus, it's going to take them to that artboard, and it's going to auto animate, and we'll see if 0.3 seconds seems to work. The trigger is a tap. Okay, so let's take a look at that. What's your phone number? Okay, perfect. I realize I do not want there to be, let me go back to design. I don't want a border around this either. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to create effects for dragging out your, to create swipe gestures, for example. So I wanted to give people a few options when they're working with this kind of interface here. So what we're going to do is pull out another rectangle. One of the first things that we'll do, actually I'm going to do a square here. So I'm going to hold Shift and drag it out. First thing is we're going to think about sending your partner a message. Let's go back to that plugin for stock photographs. And let's type in message. Okay, this is great. Let's go ahead and insert that into here. So I just clicked on it and then it populated that, which is great. I wanted to have rounded corners, and we're at about 30. That looks good. Go back to my layers here. And I am going to drag out another rectangle beneath this that is going to be, I'll need to drag that beneath. And I'm going to similarly set the corners for that to 30. I'm going to turn off the border of that. I'm going to change the fill using the eyedropper tool to this color here. And then with text, I'm going to write send a message, which is absolutely huge right now. Let's go ahead and pull that down to a normal size. I'm going to center it. And this will similarly. Okay, that's a little bit big. Okay, so 26 font. One of the things that you will find as you're designing these as well is that when you're creating menu items here, what you'll want to do is start with your longest title, whatever it's going to be, and build the size around that. Because ultimately, if you begin with the menu item that says contact, but then you have a different one that says like view my portfolio, the number of letters in each of those is just so massively different. You want to start with the one with the most letters, actually. And I'm actually in the wrong typeface as well. I want to stick with tablet, and I'm going to do regular here, and I'm going to align that center. I'm going to bring the background up a little bit, and now I'm going to click on send a message, the message picture, and the border around it, and Command or Control G to group those into a single item. It doesn't want to do that. Let me see if I right click and choose group. There we go. Message card, this will be called. Let me go ahead and raise that up a little bit. And we are going to give people some options here that they're going to drag between. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this and hold shift and just drag it out to the right. And I want it to be visible. And there are 21 pixels between. We can actually even do the same thing over here where we can drag out perhaps a third option. And for these options, we can do things like adding maybe sending a song. So let's see if something interesting comes up here. Or you can type music. If I'm looking for headphones. And I can double click on that and center those headphones. Okay, so I've duplicated this here, and I want to be able to drag between them. What I'm going to do here, though, I'm going to click on the text here, and I'm going to drop the opacity to 0. The rectangle comes up. Okay, and this, gets all moved over about 21 pixels or so. And then I need to rename this. Instead of message card, this one is music. Now I'm going to duplicate this plus sign menu holding Alt or Option. And here I'm going to slide this off screen, drop the opacity of the text, shrink the rectangle, and pull this one to the center. Actually, I want to pull that to the center and then go back to this and make sure that they are about 21 apart again. And then here I can go ahead and turn the text back up. In terms of opacity, I can click on the rectangle and drop that down. And we can then scroll between those. So what we will do in our prototype is to click from here using a drag option, which is sort of the equivalent of a swipe. The easing, we can choose ease in, for example. You can kind of experiment with what seems to work best. And then let's just go back to the card, same kind of thing, where we have an ease in auto animate. So let's see if that worked. So I can drag between those two items. So on my phone, I should be able to swipe and just have a bunch of options. And you can kind of have sort of an infinite line that feels interactive between them. Now the next thing is, if we click on send a message, let's animate what that will look like. So I want a text box to come up and messages to be populated there. So I'm going to go back to design, and I'm going to choose a rectangle option. I'm going to hide this behind the menu here, and I will drop the opacity to 0. And now I'm going to duplicate the plus sign menu. I'm going to drag that upward, because this is going to be now what happens when somebody hits the text option. Okay, so let us, so I'm going to drag this beneath, and I'll have to do it in the first card as well, where it's coming from. So I want to make sure that it, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. It needs to go all the way down beneath the bottom menu bar. This will fade out here. This will move all the way up. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? No, that wasn't what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was go ahead and fade the text out here. Move this down, and I wanted to go ahead and holding shift, kind of move this over to the corner. What I'm going to do is pull this up, and I'm going to give this a rounded corner by holding option here, and then I can just move this into the corner. And with the text tool, I can go ahead and write message, changing that to black. And this can go ahead and disappear for the moment. And what I need is I need a keypad to pop in here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and have this drop down and be replaced with a keypad. Let me jump back over to iOS and grab some text here that I can use. So I can grab this, I can copy it, come back over to my space here and paste it in. Oh, no, that didn't work. I need to be clicked on that. There we go. It didn't paste into the actual bar or that artboard itself. I'm going to double click, go in, get rid of this fill here. Go ahead and pull this up, kind of shrink it down a bit, holding shift. And now this can be my keyboard for this. Let me go ahead and copy this. I'm going to have this slide in from the previous one. So let me paste it into here, and I will, oops. Go ahead and move the keypad down beneath, holding shift to keep it in line, and then drop the opacity to 0. And then that way, when somebody hits send a message, what we can also do is drag this up to here. The trigger is a tap, and it will auto animate as well to that. So let's see if that worked out for us. So the dragging works still, and if I hit send a message, there we go. Now I need to get back somehow to that. So if they tap on a message, the other thing we could do is go back to our icons and look at to see if there's a back button. And we don't want to confuse anybody with this. So maybe even, yeah, I don't know if back quite works. We could try the arrow. So I'm going to click here. I can put an arrow in. See if that seems to work. Oh, I'm still in prototype here, so let me. So this is one of the things that we need to figure out here is once they're in this message, how do we get them out and back to where we needed to go? So a back button would work. Similarly, if they clicked on just the word message, that should also work out for us, or the icon here. So in prototype, for example, if they click message, it could send them back here with a tap. Same thing with this button or with this icon. So all three of those will ultimately lead back to that first option. So when we play it, we can see I want to send a message, but I want to go back. Okay, so these are some options for creating some draggable, swipeable animations. Let's look at creating an animation for the menu bar down here. So if somebody decides to click on this icon, how can we animate that? So we will start by creating a duplicate of this. Let's start with the send a message option. We're going to click on the name and we're going to duplicate it, and we'll do it down here. And you can see that we still have the keypad and everything kind of living nearby with this, so we'll actually pull all that down. And now we can duplicate it. And what we will do here is we are going to move this up. Okay, so I'm going to move this menu bar up. Every time I'm clicking on it, however, it's choosing rectangle 575. I don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and just lock that so I don't have to worry about it. And now I can click on my menu bar. And move that upward. Okay, and what we will do here for the send a message card, we're gonna make that disappear and transparent for the moment. Same thing with that. And we will slide this up just a bit. And I'm going to pull out a shape that lives underneath this. that matches it in color, no border. And I'm going to click into this menu bar here and give it a bit of a shadow as well. I'm going to move these things around, kind of bump them up a bit, change the opacity of this. And actually I realize that this needs to be beneath the bottom menu bar. So I'm going to drag this rectangle underneath there so we have that shadow kind of living there. And what I'm going to do is pull out just a few icons that will serve as a kind of menu for this. So I can look for things like profile or maybe user. Oh, and you know what? When it attaches to a different place, I was not actually then selected on the right card. So let me go back to my card here. And I'm just going to click on a particular site, and it should then paste nearby what I want to do. And I'll hold shift and kind of shrink that down a bit. Settings, it's good. Maybe something related to time, like some kind of archive. That looks a bit like a stopwatch. Let's see if there's a better one. Maybe time lapse works better, just to signify that. Let's see, a bookmark. And maybe we'll end with a find user. So add a person. Okay, I'm going to drag this add a person to the end here, and I'm going to shift click across all of these because I want to distribute them. So once I have clicked all 5 and they're sort of the first one and the last one are spread out, I can go ahead and go up to Object, Distribute horizontally, and then it will automatically get them spread out that way. And as Steve Krug has argued, we don't want to just leave icons to speak for themselves, so we might add some text here as well that will say things like profile, and I'll bring the size of this way down to maybe about 14 and drag it into place. Settings. Archive. Bookmarks, and then finally maybe something like connect. And now I'm going to hold this over here and similarly highlight all of those pieces of text, and I can similarly distribute those horizontally, and I can align them as well. No. And I can align them to their middle. And that looks good, and I'll just get them. And actually, you probably want to make sure that they, based on the sort of laws of proximity, you want to make sure that people understand that profile goes with profile, settings goes with settings. Right now, archive is way off. So it's better to not have them perfectly distributed if it's not going to make sense exactly what they are. And I might reduce the font on those as well. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this background rectangle and then just highlight everything that I've added so far, because I want to turn these into a group. All right, and I hit Command G or Control G, and now this is called a new group, and I'll call this menu pop-up. And I'll go ahead, and this is now moved to the wrong spot. Again, I need to drag that beneath the menu bar. I'll go ahead and copy it, and I'm gonna go up here and paste it into this. I'm gonna drag it down just beneath here and drop its opacity and make sure that menu pop-up is beneath the bottom menu bar again. And now when I go to prototype, I can keep clicking in until I get to those 3 dots within and let me lock this again. This rectangle's giving me grief. There we go. So it just took a bunch of clicks until I actually got into the hamburger icon here, and what I'm going to do is drag it to this, and it's going to be a tap that auto animates. And similarly right here, let me just eventually click into it. Yep, and then here I can drag this back here with a tap. Okay, let's see if that worked. Okay. And I've only done it right here to this, so what I'll need to do as well is over in this one I need to paste the same bars. I need to drag it down exactly how I did the other one, and then I'm still in prototype here. I need to jump over to design, drop my transparency, make sure that the menu pop-up is beneath the bottom menu bar, and then under prototype I can again jump in until I get to there. And actually what I'll probably want to do, let me go back to design, is to duplicate this. And in prototype, the hamburger icon, when you're on sending a, oh sorry, this says send a message, it needs to say share a song, but that will come here, and this will go there. And I'm going to change send a message to share a song. And same thing, I will duplicate this one more time over here, and I will paste in the I'm going to copy this and paste it over here, dragging it down, dropping its opacity, but I do need to make sure that this is fixed as well when scrolling. And now in prototype, just clicking and clicking until it gives me the little arrow next to the hamburger. There we go. And I can attach it to here. And same thing here. And it looks like this is set up to go to wire there. I can pull those wires out because actually this wire needs to go here. And let me make sure that these are all still wired up well. Yes, they are. Okay. All right, let's take a look and see how this is working so far. So that works. And it didn't look like that animated very well. And I think what happened, let me go back to menu pop-up is in the wrong place. So when you see things fade rather than animate, it usually means that in the layers they are either misnamed or they're in the wrong spot. So let's take a look at that again. And it faded again. So that is a concern because what it should look like is that where you get the very clear. Oh, and that interesting. Oh, it's the ultimately you can see what happened here was in this original version I actually got rid of these things, and so for this one it animated in a very strange way, and now I can't go back to it because it then led out to a different site. So I'll have to go in and fix the wiring for that, and also fix how things are named, where they're at.
Okay, so those are some of the techniques that you'll be able to use when you're creating your own prototypes to recreate some of the gestures that people would do when they're interacting with normal interfaces. Hopefully this will give you a good head start in terms of actually creating your own designs and understanding what XD is capable of and the range of things that you can do using plugins, using gestures, using different components and UI kits to be able to build a relatively straightforward prototype using things from around the web. Now that you've got it up and running, the next thing you're going to do is test it out. And what you're going to do here is use the XD app to be able to pull it over either to a phone or to a tablet, depending on the kinds of interface that you're going to do. So on my phone, I've got the XD app, and I'm going to show you exactly how I encourage you to use it. Okay, so I've got Adobe XD here, and I've got the LDR prototype ready to go, and it is loading it. And this is what you'll do. Essentially, you'll have either someone load it on their phone. And here we can see that we have 4 missing fonts. So actually what I want to do is go in and get rid of those to make sure that every time somebody's using this, it's not kicking back an error about fonts. So I need to go fix that. So what's your phone number? All right, it found me, and I'll notice that the logo is a little off here, so I need to test this first of all, but it scrolls through my content. That looks good. If I want to access that menu, there we go. And here I can swipe between these things, and I can send a message as well. All right, so those are some of the basic functionalities. So what I would do is when this launches for somebody, I'll hand them a phone or have them use their phone if you're connecting remotely. And you begin by asking them their impressions. What do they think this app is about? And then you have them do things. Go ahead and enter your phone number and share a song with your partner and narrate that experience to me as you do it. So I'll enter my phone number here. Oh, it already auto-populated it. That's great. I'll go ahead and hit the button there. And if I wanted to share a photo with somebody, I don't see that is what they'll say to you. I wonder if it's under menu. Don't see it there. Maybe I need to send a message, share a song. Okay, so here, if you have somebody narrate to you, actually that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I wasn't sure what this app was capable of. Actually, I think that stuff needs to be on the home screen, not sort of buried beneath the plus sign. So, what you might do is have people go back and, based on that feedback, I might put these main features right on the home page rather than hide them behind the plus sign menu option as an example. And you'll use these as a opportunity to go back and see what works about your app, what's usable, and what doesn't work and what needs revision. So I wish you the best of luck as you go through this process and build out your apps. I look forward to seeing what kinds of apps and interfaces you decide to make for this project.